Sam Lawler, Feno Sullivan, Jagger Smith, they are the three names hot on the lips of all Richmond supporters in our quest to try and work out which one should we take with the number one pick this year in the upcoming draft. I've still got no idea, but today I want to get everyone else's thoughts. I want to get your thoughts. If you're the national recruiter for the Richmond Football Club, which of those three are you taking at the number one pick? Now, don't answer just yet because I want to give some information and we'll show some footage of each of the players. Just in regards to the footage we're about to see on these three players, I do want to give a big shout out to the Footy Stuff YouTube channel. I'll link them in the description below. They showcase the highlights of all the draftees and their footage has been fantastic, so make sure you get around them. So keep that in mind. Let's start off with Sam Lawler. 188 centimetres from the Rebels, is a midfielder slash forward. And he's really shot up into calculations in the last month. I think it's fair to say if you look at a lot of people's power rankings and draft boards prior to maybe this month, he probably was featuring in the sort of 12 to 6 mark. But in this last month or so, he's really kind of shot up into calculations for Richmond anyway, as a potential number one pick. Looking at his strengths, clean hands, kick penetration, physicality, power, scoreboard impact, and most important, tackling. And that's probably the interesting piece because there's been a lot of comparisons to Dustin Martin. But a more interesting comparison would actually be a Christian Petrarca, purely because Lawler does have a good defensive side to his game. He does love to tackle, and when he tackles, they stick, which is something a little bit different to the game of Dusty. Lawler has made a bit of his name for himself recently playing forward of centre as well. So in his first game back for school, I think he kicked 7 goals. And for Vic Country as well, he also kicked 3 very handy goals in the championship games as well. But so the main concern I've got for Lawler is obviously the injury setbacks. He had a hip complaint followed by a foot and quad niggles, and then ultimately ended up in a hamstring strain, which ended ended his wildcard campaign. Look, I think we've got a new strength and conditioning coach now, so hopefully we're not going to be in the same spot that we were last year. But I'd be lying if I said those things don't slightly worry me. But for all reports, Lawler is probably the player with the most potential to have the highest ceiling out of this draft crop. Is he the safest pick out of the Lawler, O'Sullivan and Smith players? I'm not too sure, but he's a very exciting prospect nonetheless. Dangerous up forward, can break a tackle, and he's just going to add that explosive element into our midfield and half forward line. So a very worthy contender, and definitely one that we should be keeping an eye out for in these upcoming mock drafts and indeed draft day. Feno Sullivan from the Oakleigh Chargers, midfielder. He's been highly touted as the number one pick for quite some time, and it's only been in the last couple of weeks or month that it's kind of been shuffled a little bit further down to 2 or 3. Not that that's too far down. Still a very, very good player. But he's obviously had a little bit of exposure with our VFL side as well, which I think is a big positive in terms of seeing what he's got at a higher level at playing up against men. So he had one outing with us. He kicked 2 goals and had 12 touches in the only outing that he had. But he is just a class unit. And it's no wonder that it's been highly touted as the number one pick. Strengths include he's got inside-outside balance, kick penetration, overhead marking, good decision-making, good versatility, toughness, and he's got a bit more turner speed as well that is probably in some ways better suited to our midfield. I think a lot of people recognise that we're a little bit flat-footed in the midfield area, so someone with a bit of speed would be ideal, I suppose. But he makes things look easy. Good decision-making, good poise, and I think that's something that we desperately need. Every club needs, and I'm finding it hard to believe that he could be knocked out of the number one spot. And his name still thereabouts just makes it even more confusing as to who we should take at the number one spot. But Feno Sullivan is definitely a player of high interest for everybody. And if we don't take him at 1, he's not going to last much longer and get to our pick 6 or 7. He did have a broken thumb injury, which sidelined him for a little bit, ruled him out of the Vic Country's opening game, but he still looks like the most well-rounded midfielder out of the crop. And yeah, I think you would be a genuine win if you took him at 1. You would not be disappointed. Jagger Smith, who has just been Mr. Consistent throughout the whole year, the Oakleigh Chargers skipper, he's had a phenomenal year of football, including getting a highest disposal game of 50 disposals. And I don't care what level of football you play, that is an exceptional number, especially doing that in Coates League, where you're playing against all the best youngsters that are up and coming that we have to offer. He's been touted as one of the number 1 to number 3 players for pretty much since the end of 2023. Even though he's lightly built, he does have very good balance, good poise, good smarts and awareness around the packs. He zips in and out really nicely. And above all else, his vision is really good as well to get a releasing handball. So, yeah, he doesn't get himself into trouble, and his light frame doesn't seem to be too much of a worry for him. Some of the strengths for Jagger: clean hands, agility, vision, decision-making, and he just racks up some serious numbers. His average disposals for 2024 Coates League, he averaged 30 touches a game, which is phenomenal. I think the lowest amount he had was about 24 or 25. Jagger Smith did also play a few games for our VFL side throughout the course of the year, slotted in seamlessly. He was attending centre bounces, kick goals, still racking up really good numbers. There was even one game in torrential rain where he still racked up a game-high 30-odd disposals. And he just fit in well. And on top of that, Steve Morris had a lot of really good things to say about him as a nice human and fits in well with the club. So very good to get him in front of the VFL boys in our system to get a good look at him. It's kind of hard to believe that he's almost fallen out of calculations, seemingly with Richmond as the number 1 pick, given that he has been on our radar for quite some time, and he's staring us right in the face. So I think there'd be a lot of disappointed people if we didn't take Jagger, but it just comes down to if we think that Lawler or Sullivan can offer more than what Jagger does. I'm not too sure. Based on stats and read-up, I think Jagger sort of shades them both, but the main question mark that a lot of people seem to have is on his hurt factor with ball in hand. But yeah, if he gets it 34 times a game, I think we'd take those odds. But anyway, they're the 3 players up for selection for the number 1 pick for the Tigers: Lawler, O'Sullivan, and Jagger Smith. If you are the national selector, the national recruiter for the Tigers, who are you taking at 1 and why? Let us know in the comments below.